Both got the sillies tonight.
You say what?
I say both of you have the sillies.
No, it's not me at all.
Yeah.
Okay, we are now live on YouTube. So we are letting people log in, get a chance to log in and join us, and then we will get a chance to start. And so looking forward to tonight's conversation. Well, how are you? You seem like you're a little happy too.
A little happy.
Yeah, are you a little happy?
No, I'm not happy.
Grand Matron of Texas. Good evening. I believe Brother Halliwell is happy. Uh, good evening, Sister.
Wait, what?
Huh?
It's like, wait, what?
Says no, I'm not happy. I'm like, well, okay, well, we'll work with that. Yeah. How was your day, Brother Halliwell?
It was a good day.
Okay. Sister Edie, how was your day?
It was amazing.
Yeah, today was an incredible day.
You always having them amazing days. I need to spend some days with you, so I can have amazing days.
Brother Evans, how was your day?
You know, I marched today.
I know. I'm excited about sharing that.
Yeah, it was.
March.
They had they asked black men to come down to the MLK Center in our Sunday's Best, and Bernice King was there. Reverend Warnock, you know, he's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. He was there, and the Atlanta City Council president was there, and the chair. There were a few other politicians, and so they had just called for black men to come in, but there were quite a few non-black men who were there. But it was a lot of people. It was a lot of people, and I said, you know, dress shoes. You have to not wear dress shoes when you're marching a long way. You have to wear some comfortable shoes. Don't worry about your feet, how your feet look. You know. Oh, okay. Good evening, Grandmaster of North Carolina, Brother Michael Person, Sister Chevelle Porter. Good evening. Sister Linda Glass Hodge, Sister Kathy Jones, Sister Frances Burris. Good evening. Sister Donna Anderson, Brother Chris Diggs, illustrious Lamont Brown, Grandmaster for the state of Michigan, Sister Valerie Martin, and Sister Latanya Beatty. What do you say, Brother Halliwell?
I said my grandmaster.
That is definitely, actually all of them are your grandmasters.
Brother Brown's the number one grandmaster.
Number one grandmaster, okay.
One grandmaster, grandmaster of Michigan.
Grandmaster of Michigan is the number one grandmaster. Did you hear that, Sister Edie?
You know, I really don't want to debate my people tonight because we're looking for solutions. So I'm going to let them have that moment.
Okay. Now, Sister Edie, what you got in that cup?
Coffee. It's always coffee.
Because that's a white cup clear on the screen.
Coffee.
Okay.
I drink about 2 of these a day, and this is my 3rd. So, yeah.
Well, good deal. Okay. Well, good evening, Sister Bridget Washington, Brother Muhammad Bay Down. I think I got it.
Baydoun.
Yeah. Huh?
Baydoun.
Okay. So you know Brother Baydoun?
Yes, he's from Michigan.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you are here to correct my pronunciation. Okay. Sister Mary McFadden Coates, good evening to you. Good evening, everyone. We are going to give folks, it's 5 minutes after. So I think we can jump in. I think the last conversation we had gotten up to 500 views. So people will come back and rewatch it. So we don't want to delay the conversation. And so tonight we are talking about solutions. And I want to share today, I had a chance to participate in a march that was going on in Atlanta. We were asked, black men were asked to come in our Sunday's Best, and all those who supported us. And so we had a chance to gather at the MLK Center right across from the crypt of Martin and Coretta, as well as Reverend Warnock, who took over the Ebenezer Baptist Church some time ago, where Dr. King preached. And one of the things that Reverend Warnock talked about was the geese formation. It's how the geese, with no protest, with no legislation or policy, have a formation where there is a lead geese. And when that lead geese gets tired, automatically they shift and another geese will come forward and continue the formation of the direction that the geese are going in. And one of the quotes that I got from him is that he said, I can imagine the geese saying, my individual location does not determine our ultimate destination. And so no matter where the geese are in the line, the ultimate destination where the geese are headed is not determined by that. And then of course, Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, gave a great speech. And one of the things that a couple of things that she said that I just want to highlight was, there is a fierce urgency of now, because now we have the attention of the world watching what's going on. And so with that attention that we have, there's a fierce sense of needing to act, and that we need to stay on the wall like Nehemiah. And so I had to come home and look up Nehemiah and the wall so I could familiarize myself with that. And I thought it was fitting that God told Nehemiah to build a wall, and he took him 56 days to build that wall, but he didn't leave until the wall was built. And her drive home point was that we can't leave this moment until the walls are built around police brutality and getting the chokehold removed from our option for police and all of that. So yeah, so today was a very good day as far as being active and involved and inserting myself. And so I wanted to say, as far as I think solutions, right? Tonight we're talking about solutions. Today we seen, I think it was yesterday, where the other 3 officers were arrested. So now all 4 have been arrested. I think the other 3 were charged with accessory to a second-degree murder. And so that was good. Of course, today was the funeral for George Floyd. Reverend Al Sharpton, I think if he had to name the sermon, is "Get Your Knee Off of My Neck," was the message to America from a policy perspective, corporations economically, and all those different things. I hadn't had a chance to review the whole speech, but I did see that as one of the main headlines as far as the speech was concerned. So wanted to check in with you all before we got into solutions, as far as since we last chatted on Tuesday. And Brother Halliwell, I'm gonna start with you and ask you to briefly tell us how your things have been going since we talked, briefly.
And what things are you referring to, brother?
Oh, anything as far as related to, the conversation that we had Tuesday, if you had any post conversation thoughts or anything you wanted to check in on that.
Well,
okay.
Just
you said what now?
I said just briefly. One of the things that I'm kind of careful about is that International Masons being a 501 organization, there are some limitations on things that we can do on an official basis.
Yes, sir.
So there are some personal opinions and biases that I have that I'm not always at liberty to express as an officer of the organization.
Okay.
That being said,
okay.
As I thought about Tuesday's discussion and the need to come up with some sort of proposed solutions, tonight I think I'll be prepared to discuss some of those that I think from an organizational perspective and then from a personal perspective.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. The disclaimer as fair as that using I statements when we speak individually, so that we don't indict, yeah, that we're speaking on behalf of the organization. And so everybody watching, just know that you be very mindful of our formal opinion and our individual opinion, because before we are members, we are individuals. Yeah. Sister Edie.
So I think just going back to a 2-day ago conversation where the world has now taken on a shift, because I think everybody wants to head toward healing and solutions and where we are. I think tonight opens up that conversation to really know and understand kind of what we first have to acknowledge. I think what second, how do we get to next? And then third, what does the consistency in that look like? So I'm excited about the conversation.
Okay, okay. So let's jump right into solutions, unless you all had some questions that you all wanted to chat about. I think, with a good hour and maybe hour and 3 minutes left, I think we can spend that talking about solutions, as well as engaging those who are watching us on YouTube, because we're broadcasting live on YouTube, not Facebook. Yeah, so I don't want to share mine. I want to be the last one to share mine, because I don't want someone to say, oh, that was my proposed solution, that was my thought. And so if you share your solution or proposed recommendation, I would ask if you are sharing it as an individual, or if you feel like you're expressing it from a member or leadership perspective. And let's go to our Southeast National District Associate Grand Matron.
So every view that I share tonight is from my own personal view and my own personal opinion, because I represent Bajia. So the three things that I kind of want to identify with, in my opinion, what's going to get us to head into a solution is to be very intentional to buy Black.
Okay.
And that's unapologetically engage Black, unapologetically. So, get involved with your NAACPs, get involved with your Black Lives Matter movement. And lastly, and I think it's kind of cliche and everybody says it, but vote. Because I think if people understood and knew how chief of police got their position and who appointed them, then they would show up at every county council and city council meeting to make sure we're electing people. So those would be my three things.
Okay. So can you share your second one? Because I get the first one by Black, but it seemed like you tied the second one in. But go ahead, share your second one again.
It would be engage Black. So, we don't always have to spend money to be seen and be heard. We can also throw our support around Black-run organizations, NAACP being the oldest, Black Lives Matter being the baby, but it was birthed out of the Trayvon Martin movement. So intentional on that.
Okay, okay. Let's go to illustrious Halliwell.
Okay, first I'm going to speak from an organization.
Okay.
And I think it's important that we speak with one voice, a unified voice. And in order to develop that, we need to come up with the appropriate themes that reflect our interests, our concerns, and it would be something that would have to be approved on an organizational basis by the Supreme President. And then take that message to all of our states, through press conferences, letters and visits to public officials to express our concerns. Also write letters to the editors of the various newspapers, the TV stations, radio stations, etc., so that they can hear our voice, a unified voice across America expressing a position of organization for international Masons addressing the concerns of Black Lives Matter and the atrocities that we experience as Black men and women in this country.
Okay. Okay, were you going to share something as an individual?
Oh, as an individual,
Okay.
I think that each of us needs to personally get involved
Okay.
uh, in ways that reflect our own perspective.
Okay.
And I think that we can do that in many ways.
Okay.
Some of them associated with what I propose for an organization. But we should be known by the elected officials by name. They ought to know, they ought to know us well enough that they can see us and call us by name.
Okay.
So that when we're speaking to them, they know who they're speaking to.
Okay.
Get involved in our political parties, whatever your party of choice happens to be, because I don't think that's something that the organization needs to be dictated.
Right. Right.
Whatever your own individual preference is, that's where you ought to be. But you ought to become actively involved in it. Consider supporting members who have political interests. I would suggest that here in Michigan, I imagine across the country, they have precinct delegates, which is the first level of elected position.
Okay.
That all of us ought to seek out being precinct delegates. And those who aspire to higher elective offices, we ought to be supportive of them, work to get them elected, and then hold their feet to the fire just like we would anybody else to ensure that the reasons that we assisted in getting there are what they're doing after that.
Okay. Okay. So, Brother Howard, I may need you to speak up just a little. I heard you, but you went down a little bit on the very last thing that you said, the third point, it seemed like.
Okay.
I know you talked about elected officials and those who are aspiring for higher elected office, and then I kind of lost you a little.
And once we're successful getting them elected,
Okay.
we need to hold their feet to the fire the same as we would anyone else to ensure that the reasons that we assisted them getting there, they don't forget why we put them.
Okay. Okay. So I'm speaking on behalf of Lamont Monte Evans. Yeah. So I'm speaking on behalf of me because I think all that my involvement in this movement as far as currently has been an individual involvement, not an organization perspective. Yeah, so the three things that I came up with what I want to say before I mention those three things is that I got a call from a member who said that never has she ever seen a conversation on behalf of the organization about social justice. Is that since she's been involved, is that this is her first time seeing us actively like engaged. And I'm gonna come back around to you, Brother Halliwell, to ask where is there an opportunity for us to ever really have a conversation, because at these conventions, yeah, we are tight. But my three personal recommendations is I think we have to form conversation circles. I think parents have to talk to their children, their grandchildren, their nieces and nephews about a clear America that is a reality for many of us. There is clearly a black and white America. And we have to teach our young people how to navigate that landscape. Is that they shouldn't be learning about it from the result of a bad incident from a police officer or from a job or something like that. This is something that if it's shared in the home, if it's shared, one of the, I was on a 3-hour panel last night, and one of the things that the young people said is that their mothers were more concerned about telling them what they couldn't do and where they couldn't go. But when this issue happened, they were kind of flabbergasted because they didn't have any conversations at home. So my first one would be conversation circles and tips on conversation circles. I definitely agree with Sister Edie on engagement, but one of the things that I would encourage is institution building. I think that we need more organizations birthed as a result of the energy from what's going on today that is either connected to the organization or not. But I definitely think that we need more organizations that are focused on dealing with race in America, dealing with race in our community, and looking at historically where we come from and having that as a backdrop. And so I'm a fan of institution building. And then I underscore both of you all talking about voting. But one of the things I would also, and I like what you said, Brother Halliwell, is that once you get them elected, you keep in contact with them and follow them all the way through. I believe that we should look at, because I know Sister Edie is going to talk about a macro from a voting perspective, because of course next Tuesday is our day to vote as far as June the 9th. But I'm suggesting, and one of my recommendations is that we get definitely involved. I think it probably underscores what you said, Brother Halliwell, is locally, is find out who's in charge locally. Make sure that we're always there. These young people last night were talking about they didn't feel like their agenda was being heard by Atlanta City Council. And what I told them, I asked them is, how often are you at the meeting? Do you show up when you're upset about something and then you just disappear and they don't know that this is an issue that's heated for you or important to you because they don't constantly see you? So those would be to not only vote locally, but get involved locally. And, you know, like we carve out times for meetings, we should also carve out times for council sessions or general assembly sessions of our city or states. And so those would be the three things that I would submit as solutions for individuals to consider. Yeah. So can we break down the solutions a little bit more? When you say buy black, where does that come from? Like, when you came up with that as a recommendation, Sister Edie, what frame of thought were you thinking about?
It came from the frame of thought of having a conversation in Minnesota today, being part of a virtual town hall conversation where it was shared with me by their state reps. 40% of African-American businesses closed due to COVID-19. It was a pandemic, everybody was pressed. 38% of that 40% will not reopen because no one that looks like them, even though we scream it, have also supported them during this crisis. So then you couple that on top of some, you know, were looted, some were vandalized, but I think just being very intentional on where we eat, you know, somebody in the craft who does something that we can, you know, buy a cup or a shirt or something where we think it's a little gesture. Everybody started small, even Apple, okay, you know, who is your favorite? Everybody started, sorry, a little bit of shade. But everybody started small. Facebook started in a dorm room. It just takes one person believing. But if I'm intentional on, I'm gonna budget $50 this week for lunch. Mm-hmm. And with that $50, when it's spent, it's gonna be spent at Black-run establishment, Black-owned establishments. You know, that's just my way of paying it forward. So that's where it was birthed from.
Okay, okay. And Brother Halliwell, when you talked about
can I speak on that point just
okay.
for a moment? On Tuesday, one of the sisters put a note in the chat, mm-hmm. A suggestion that we take one day and across the total organization, we only buy from Black-owned establishments. That could be expanded to 1 week. For many people are going to say, well, there are no Black-owned grocery stores in my neighborhood. But they'll go all the way across the county to get to Macy's or Nordstrom's or Dillard's because there's none in the neighborhood. Okay. So they might have to go out of their comfort zone a little bit to get to where a Black business is. But if we only spent our dollars, mm-hmm. our members, if we can encourage our members to only spend dollars at African-American owned establishments, whether that's a dry cleaners or a grocery store, a gas station, or whatever it happens to be, spend no dollars at anything that's not owned Black. for one day or 1 week. I think that would send a strong message, and let it be known that we are doing that intentionally.
Okay.
That would be a good thing, I think, that would to help drive that point home. Is the absence of black dollars will put a lot of white businesses on notice.
Yes.
We spend a lot of dollars in their businesses.
Yes, I agree.
We should do it on June the 19th for Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, that would be a good day if we could organize it by
June 9th, Juneteenth. So the week of Juneteenth.
Yeah, so Friday is the actual day that we identify for Juneteenth. But I mean, it could be that entire week, but we have 2 weeks to prepare and be strategic about putting those names and those businesses out there, you know, while saying we're gonna consciously only support, you know, African-American or Black businesses or members of the order who have a business.
Okay. So I want to veer off for a second and talk about something that has been kind of a hot topic as far as people hijacking the Black Lives Matter movement. Is that people have been saying all lives matter. A lot of other groups have said lives matter. You know, you put something, you replace Black with something else and say lives matter. And I think one of the conversations we've had locally or on this one group I'm a part of is you can't say all lives matter until Black Lives Matter. And if the group is up under the Black community or Black umbrella, then Black Lives Matter to me is a coverall. But some people feel like you have to carve out sections. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree that all lives matter, but as African Americans and members of a predominantly African American organization, Black lives are of utmost importance to us, because that's who we are. So our lives ought to matter as much, if not more, than anybody else.
Okay.
That's a personal thing.
Yes, sir. Sister Bajia W, it's W Edie, right? Isn't that?
We're just gonna go with Sister Bajia Edie tonight. We're not.
You own it tonight, huh? Okay.
Right, because you go try to difficult me out this conversation. So I think for me, because I know the history of what Black Lives Matter was birthed out of, you can't have a conversation with me versus Black Lives Matter against any other life matter.
Okay.
We understand, and we never said no other life matter, but we only focusing on Black lives right now.
Okay.
That's my conversation.
Okay. Okay. So now let's get back to our suggestions. So engaging Black. So, you know, you brought up the NAACP. I think the challenge for me, because I was a member of the NAACP. My membership, I think, expired earlier this year at the end of last year. And my challenge is it's an old institution that has not remade itself. Like, you can't put, what is the Bible phrase? I should know this, but you know, I don't know.
You can't put new wine in old wine skins.
There you go. And so I think with the NAACP, I won't say it's run its course, but I will say it has not remade itself to be current for where we are right now. I think they jump in and jump out. And I think the struggle with them jumping in and out is that they haven't figured out what their new identity is in 2020. Sister Edie?
So I'm gonna definitely disagree.
Of course.
I think a lot of people look at the NAACP as an old organization. I did too. Until I realized their movement, and like any organization, just like international, it needs young members to survive and to keep moving the movement ahead. I think if we understand what their work is and what our work is to them, then it becomes a beneficial relationship of why every African American should be a member of the NAACP.
You believe every African American should be
absolutely, unapologetically. You need to renew your membership.
But what? Okay. But what about other organizations that have relevancy and presence in communities more so than the NAACP. Like, how do you deal with that? Is that the NAACP is strong?
The same way you buy Nike tennis shoes and Reeboks.
Yeah,
You
but
don't have to
NAACP
choose
is
one over the
strong.
other. You can support both.
But the NAACP is strong in some communities and totally irrelevant in other communities.
And
Come
that's,
here, Brother Halliwell.
that's true because of the persons who are involved in the different areas.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay? To Sister Edie's point, the last two executive directors of the Detroit branch NAACP, which is one of the larger in the country, have been under the age of 40 when they started.
Okay.
And currently ours is led by a young lady who is under 40. I'm not sure how much under 40, but she's under 40. Now, the president is a seasoned member who's an African-American minister who's sort of radical.
Okay, sort of
He's
radical.
cool. He's cool with me. We all right.
Okay.
But he's very aggressive, aggressive, unapologetic, and gets out and puts that face on. She does the corporate thing.
Okay.
He does the activism.
Okay.
And you need a team like that. It has to be a combination of seasoned as well as young, aggressive person.
Okay. That is a great segue, Brother Halliwell. Two words you use that I want to continue to engage Sister Edie on.
Don't pick on my sister.
Okay, engaging Black, right? So Brother Halliwell said radical leadership, right? That the president of the NAACP Detroit chapter has this radical leadership persona, right? Is that's the NAACP in Detroit. But I will also submit, yes, you're right. It depends on their involvement locally because some groups are more active than others, right? So, but how would a chapter-based organization like the NAACP, right? How does radical leadership roll down from the top? I love Benjamin Hooks and Benjamin Chavis and was it Kwesi Mfume? Those three leaders were on it when it came to running the NAACP and keeping the name forward. Unfortunately, I don't even know who the executive director is right now. But as an 18-year-old, I wanted to be Benjamin Hooks. I was like, I need to be just like him because that is the man when it comes to taking care of Black people, and he's on it, and he knows how to engage in political discussions, and he goes toe-to-toe with a lot of people. That was my hero. But yeah, now I don't know. Don't be Googling it, Sister Edie, right now, because I see you on your phone.
I'm not Googling that. I'm replying to a text, but everybody knows it's President Johnson. Like, it's just some things we should know. And that's one of those things. Because you used to have your money invested. That's why you should know. If you need to be advanced as a colored person, you can call them. And even at the lowest membership, they'll come to your aid.
Brother Halliwell, are we still using colored?
The name of the organization has not changed.
Right, it has not changed. So,
however, in my lifetime,
you've been what?
I've been colored, I've been Black, I've been African American, I've been nigger, I've been Negro, and a number of other things that folks change from time to time to time.
Okay.
And and at one point, there was a discussion here in Detroit about Blacks in America having an identity crisis because they never knew exactly what they ought to be called. Okay. And consequently, we've been called some of everything. And at some point, we need to decide exactly what we're going to be. I mean, I use synonymously two terms. I use Black and I use African American.
Right.
But I don't use Negro and I don't use color.
Okay. You had said to, I think, personally get involved to reflect on you were talking fast. Your first point is that
you told me I had to get a lot done in it.
Yeah. But I know that you were saying to get involved, right? And when you say get involved from a personal perspective, what do you mean? Are you suggesting me to also renew my membership with the NAACP?
I would suggest that you become a member of the NAACP, the Urban League, and any other organization that shares our interests. No
Okay.
one organization is going to be able to get everything done.
Okay. Okay.
Get active in your church. If you got a church that's doing something in the community.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Sister Edie, I see your face. Okay. So, Sister Edie, you said vote black.
Brother Halliwell, you remember he had to go home and look up Nehemiah and research it. That's why I was laughing at that comment. But go ahead, Brother Evan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Shade on this broadcast tonight is just at an all-time high. I'm amazed. Okay. You said vote black. Is that what you said?
I said vote.
Vote. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us your frame of thought as far as voting, because we know, I don't know any person who's not a member of International that doesn't know what campaign you work for.
And even before I worked for a presidential campaign, because this is my second, I volunteered for Obama. That's how much I believed in him.
Okay.
I didn't need a paycheck.
Okay.
And not that I don't believe in Biden the same, but I believe in where we are as a country, more so than everything. But we have to get out of the mind frame that we only vote one time every 4 years for the president.
Okay.
And I think once we understand the three arms or the three branches of government, then we can better have conversations with people who feel like my vote doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count, why should I vote, those kind of things. But I don't think at this temperature where we are, not voting is an option, especially for people of color.
Yeah. And I sort of think, and you all tell me your thoughts on this, I sort of think the same way when it comes to where we are with this situation in the country, right? Is that not having a discussion about this is actually having a discussion. Is that if we don't talk about this, and the context last night that I brought up with these young brothers was, because they were like, well, how did we get to this point? Well, Black folks have been inside for 2 months. COVID locked us inside for 2 months. The gyms were closed. There was nowhere to take this pent up energy.
The bars were closed.
Yeah, the bars, everything was closed. This video hit. First, we had our Arbery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the lady in Central
Breonna Taylor,
who was trying. No, I'm not talking.
Karen.
I'm talking about the one who walked up. I couldn't imagine what she was thinking, to walk up to a Black man and try to turn off his phone,
Right.
because he was bird watching. Then we had George Floyd. And I think that was the tipping point where Black folks just said enough is enough. And so I think that is what has gotten us here, right? And so then they said, well, why are so many non-Black people involved? This is my opinion, and I'd like to solicit you all's. I believe, this is just me, it's because they were also pent up in the house. Their jobs were doing virtual work and telecommuting. Is that, here's an opportunity for them to get out and be active. I don't believe that if we were doing business as usual as a country, we would see as many non-Black people involved today if the country was operating at its full capacity prior to COVID-19.
You're probably right. I think you would have the young whites and others,
Okay.
but the older ones probably wouldn't be. But
okay.
I agree with you. It's an excuse to get out of the house. Hey, I can go on out here, and I'm part of this movement. So, if you're gonna arrest somebody, arrest them Black folks over there. But I'm out here. Okay? At least I'm getting some fresh air.
Okay. Sister Edie, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do agree. I think we would have had every retailer that has spoke out, they would have spoke just as they have. We may have not have seen the same presence walking with us.
Okay.
It's where I think the difference would have been. So I think that's kind of the difference. The retailers, yes, They know the black dollars.
Okay.
When you have Brahman send out an email and telling you to support Black Lives Matter, you don't have to tell me to support Black Lives Matter.
I don't even know who that is.
So they make women handbags. That's a whole nother conversation.
Right. I'm like, okay.
And from a biblical perspective, remember they put the lamb's blood on the doorpost and passed by those. I think this supporting Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Hey, my company is supporting your cause.
Yeah.
If you're gonna burn something, don't burn mine.
Okay.
You're gonna loot something, don't loot mine, because I'm with you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that's part of the motivation behind it.
So, Brother Halliwell, when you say get to know your elected officials, like, can you walk folks who are watching through that process? I know what I would do, and I know what I've done as far as, you know, just looking up who runs this congressionally House perspective, whose House district I'm in, who is the commissioner of the area, who's this in DeKalb County. We have a CEO. We don't have a mayor system. We have a CEO, and we have super districts. And so my office and my home is in one of the super districts. So I know how to look that up. But can you walk members through when you said get to know our elected officials by name? What does that look like?
I said get to a point where the elected officials know you by name.
Okay. Okay.
Because
Tell us.
They are. They need to know who you are.
Okay. What are some strategies with being able to do that?
Well, one of the things, and whether you have a council, a commission, or whatever it is, they have public meetings. They're open meetings. You need to show up sometime. Sit in the meeting, engage those elected officials in personal conversation, identify yourself, and every time you see them, if you have to, you tell them your name until they remember your name. You'll stop having to tell their name, your name, and when they see you coming, they'll recognize you by name. You can do that on a local basis, on a county basis, on the state basis, as well as, you know, if you get involved enough, you get to know your state representatives, your state senators, your U.S. congressperson, your U.S. senator. All of them should know you. Every one of them. I mean, and you develop a relationship to the point where if you have an issue that you're concerned about, you can talk directly to them. I don't like to talk to the aide.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
If I want to talk to Debbie Stabenow, I want to talk to Debbie Stabenow.
Okay.
If I want to speak to Peters, I'm going to speak to Peters. You need to be able to have that relationship where you can speak to them and they know who you are. They know where you're coming from. And they know that your interest is one that they ought to take into consideration and consider it a valid subject of discussion.
So I agree, totally.
So attend a council meeting. If you have police community relations meeting, go sit in there. Get to know who's policing in your community. So that if there's an issue, there's someone there that you can call who knows who you are to get that matter dealt with.
Okay. Let's talk about international social justice work, right?
Okay.
Is from your time that you've been in the organization, right? Is that do we have a history of doing social justice work?
Not as an organization.
Okay. Where do you think we could have the conversation around social justice in the current construct? Or is that something to even have?
Well, I think it's something that is worthy of consideration.
Okay.
In the beginning of it, conversations like this, where hopefully we get to a point where we can develop a consensus of thought.
Okay.
We can advance something on a formal basis for consideration by the organization.
Okay.
You know, if you approach it in a shotgun approach, you know, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
If we have something that we've thought out well, can present it in a formalized manner.
Okay.
First with the issue, second our desired result,
Okay.
and some proposed strategy to get from point A to point B.
Okay.
We can do that and recognize that just because that's what we present,
Mhm.
it may not get adopted in whole.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a piece of the pie,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you at least you got something that you can work on in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would be a good idea for us as an organization to take a stance on some things.
Mhm.
But we have to be careful in how we do it in order to protect our not tax exempt status.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways to do almost anything that we want to do if we make it up in our minds that we want to get it done.
Okay.
So the first thing would be for us to be able to come to a consensus. And I'm not talking about the three of us on the screen. I'm talking about us as a membership organization
Mm-hmm.
coming to a consensus on where we want to get to. Because international may, like the NAACP,
Mm-hmm.
okay? You have a strong opinion about the NAACP and what it hasn't done. And there are members in International Masons who have the same feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are things that they feel that the organization should be doing that we aren't doing. But it needs to be formally brought to the organization, having those components I talked about earlier. What you want to see, what the end result is, and a strategy to get that.
Okay. Okay, Sister Edie, I'm gonna come back to that in a minute. Sister Edie, talk about your social justice work.
So a couple of different things. So beginning in college, when I first felt like I experienced blatant racism, and I think just like Brother Halliwell said, everything starts with organizing. And I think it's just like, you know, applying for a job. We have to know when we get to the table what our demands are, and then be able to go back and forth. North Carolina, still a red state, what we call, you know, a red Republican state. So when you're sitting down with the police chief and you're demanding actions to be taken and they're coming at you with what they can do, you have to, you know, be able to go back and say, no, this is what I demand, and this is the end result that I want to see. So just knowing how to negotiate your wants,
Okay.
being very organized with your wants, and then showing up. One of the biggest downfalls someone ever told me with people who don't stick together is they're not consistent to the end.
Mm-hmm.
We're just like a trending topic.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see it through. So next week, if another topic jumps off and it becomes national news, we're like squirrels chasing nuts. Mm-hmm. We're on to the next. So how do we see things through to get the justice we feel like we want?
Okay. Okay. So so let's talk about, let's say, the NAACP as a model, right? So it's a big organization, right? Is that, how do you invoke, let's say, the change that you suggested, Brother Halliwell, from a local level to President Johnson? Is that what you say, Sister? Mm-hmm. President Johnson's desk. I'll find out because I renew my membership. I'm going to renew it tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, how do you invoke change? Okay, so an issue like what's going on now with George Floyd, right, is that the consensus, formal requests, proposed strategies, all of that takes some time, right? But George Floyd just died, right? Like today was the funeral. So, but it takes more than 7 days to do the process that you said. How do you fast track that? Or is there a way to fast track that in a larger organization?
In organizations like the NAACP, the Arbery League, some of the other civil rights organizations. They have persons who are on staff
Mhm.
whose job it is to stay on top of those kinds of things.
Okay.
So, the strategy starts early, and the organizational focus is made, and then it's disseminated out throughout the organization so that it can be built upon on a nationwide basis.
Okay.
International Masons could do something similar to that. If we had someone, if it was of a decision to have a human civil rights kind of
Person.
component,
Mhm.
you designate someone who'd be watching it. They'd be on top of it. And if something jumped off, it's not something that you got to wait around 3 or 4 weeks or a month to be on top of. They would have it, that information would be going out, and the discussion can start, and the focus taken. They may even develop the focus of it
Okay.
and how it goes.
Okay.
We don't have that in our structure.
Okay. Well, and so the question that just came to mind is that something for a fraternal order such as ours? Because the Divine Nine were out there today in mass numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Use the alphas, the kappas, the deltas, the AK. Because when they called for black men in suits, of course, the Divine Nine said, okay, we're going to take our sisters also with us. And so they called them to the front. Interesting enough, they called them to the front to lead because they wanted them to have the bulk of it. But so I know within the Divine Nine that they have international presidents, and those presidents issues goals and objectives for the year that they're going to focus on. I know specifically for a couple because I do some work for them. Is that in Freemasonry and the Order of Eastern Star? It's just a question in my mind. Is that a place? Do we have a place in social justice at all, or should we defer to another structure or institution?
Historically, in Masonry, the traditional thing has been not to do that.
Okay.
Not since the Boston Tea Party, which
Right.
was a Masonic kind of endeavor. Okay. Have Masons and Eastern Stars been, and that was Masons all there, but been involved out in that kind of thing. And the unfortunate thing, fortunate and unfortunate, this designation of not-for-profit gives you some advantages, but it also puts a grip on you, okay? And if the organization is concerned about maintaining the not-for-profit status, it has to be careful in how it approaches certain things.
Okay.
That's the big hammer that the government holds over your head.
Oh yeah.
So an organization like the NAACP, in its structure from the beginning, had its focus on human and civil rights, primarily focusing on Black colored folks at that time.
I got you.
Rights, okay? So they could do almost anything they needed to do within that scope, because when they were approved and granted their not-for-profit status, that was their mission.
Okay, right.
That's not our mission.
Right.
I mean, our mission's on the front of our Constitution.
Right.
It don't say nothing about activism and motivation and protesting and nothing like that.
Right.
So you have to on an official basis do some things. So take off my International Masons officer hat. If I want to do, there are things that I do that I wear
another hat.
Masonic stuff. Okay.
Okay.
There are other things that I do that I leave that at home.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm Ken Halliwell.
Okay.
Ken Halliwell is an individual citizen in this country, can exercise his rights, his opinion, and his prerogatives to do what, where he feels he's man enough to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But if I step out there as the executive vice president of International Masons, then I have to have that fraternal facing. So my message to my brothers and sisters, you know, when we are out there, if you're part of a protest or anything of that nature, and you're wearing your regalia, conduct yourself as a Mason in Eastern Star.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm not suggesting that you ought to take that stuff off and do anything illegal or destructive, because I do not support destruction of property. I definitely don't support looting and that kind of stuff as an individual, because if it were my property, if it was my store, and you broke into it or you set it on fire, I'm not going to ask you if you're an International Mason or Eastern Star. I got something for you. Right? That's on a personal basis. Now, as an International Mason, I'm supposed to forgive. But
so last night, let me tell you, there were 3 young brothers who were part of the panel who were adamant about burning it down. They said, burn it all down. And I'm talking about, I know one of them was 31, the other 2, I think, were late 20s, right? And so I hope I talked them off the edge to say, okay, once you burn it down, then what?
Yep.
America is going to be America. This is just going to be the country that it is, right? But we have a sense of, I'm sure some of our members are dealing with that frustration and anger. I think some of our younger members are probably in the mindset of burn it down, right? And you know, one of the reasons for having this broadcast, part 1 and part 2, was hopefully to talk those members off the edge of this is not the way to go, but to provide them with some other direction or suggestions on how to meaningfully burn it down, you know, like getting involved and getting active and, you know, running for office. I was trying to encourage them to say that's a form of burning it down, because you can't change the system from the outside. You have to be on the inside. Sister Edie, your thoughts on when you think about the Order of the Eastern Star, right? As far as social justice having a place there, and I'm okay with if you all say this is not that. You know what I'm saying? Like, our focus needs to be this, and we need to put our horse blinders on and just go in this direction. I'm okay if that's, you know, what you all thoughts are, or, you know, the workaround or whatever like that. So, Sister Edie, what are your thoughts?
I think every organization has a duty to the communities in which it serves.
Okay.
So International Masons is in every state, just about every community. Do we need to add a social justice arm? No, not in my opinion, but we need to be responsible to the arms around us that serve social injustice in our communities. Okay. Whether we support them, whether we bring them in to, you know, do classes, kind of, you know, just like a diversity and inclusion expert. We may not, you know, start that in a company, but we may bring someone in when something happens racially. Okay. I believe in staying in your lane and being good at what you're good at.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought you were alluding to, Brother Halliwell, when you had said on Tuesday, that's not what we did back then. There was a way we operated back then that we don't operate now. And so what I was trying to gather my thoughts on is the way that we operated then was obviously worked and was functional, because you said we had a lot of growth at that time. I think massive growth. I can't remember. You said a lot of growth. I just remember that. But so when we think about what we should be focused on, right? As in today's climate with what's going on. Today I think is day 7 of protests and marches. So I don't know if the arresting of the other 3 officers will quail it, or if there's this engine that is now off the track and out where we're going to continue to see protests until people get back to work and they're able to go somewhere else besides the streets. I don't know. But I guess our energies, what do you all suggest our energy should be focused on? I wrote down the June 19th thing as far as Juneteenth, as far as a week of buying Black and supporting Black businesses. Sister Angie Roberts sent me a economic withdrawal boycott. It's a 7-day plan as far as that's in the same line as far as day 1, focus on big chain stores and the boycott big chain stores and department stores. And more so than boycott, I would say let's support these businesses, because instead of focusing on what not to do, let's focus on finding, like, I don't know if it's there in Greenville or Detroit, we have a Black supermarket that's predominantly in the Black community called Big Bear. I don't know if it's Black owned or not, but I'm thinking of ideals to share around what we should be focusing on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah. So what should we be focusing on with the current climate of what's going on in the country?
Well, you're speaking organizationally?
Yeah, from an organization perspective, because individually we can't dictate what people are going to do individually. I couldn't imagine we're doing that.
And that's where I get back to, we need to come to a consensus of opinion.
Okay.
I wouldn't sit here and say, this is the direction that we ought to go, without having some consultation with other leaders within the organization and the members.
Okay.
I think that, that's the thing. We need to find out where the members' hearts are.
Okay. The members' hearts.
The members' hearts. Because it's the members' organization.
Right. Okay.
Again, each of us is a member of it, but it's a member organization. Without the members, there wouldn't be an organization. And we need to take into consideration the things that they have passion about, and try to develop some focus around it as to where we need to go. Now, organizationally, the organization itself is in a crisis, so it needs some consideration as well.
Okay.
The crisis that we're in is one that is impacted by COVID-19.
Okay.
That is, and it's part of what I appreciate what you've undertaken with these social media meetings and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. I had personal concern that in the absence of meetings and conventions, that many of our members, once we got back, wouldn't be there.
Right.
Because what they joined wasn't there. And we would have just disappeared.
Right.
This has been good to kind of hold us together and keep our attention and keep us together. So that hopefully will mitigate the crisis that I was concerned about, and that is the ministry, to a point where we could possibly be in a position where we couldn't sustain ourselves moving forward. Because the only source of revenue the organization has is the membership. That ceases to participate. We still have the overhead of the organization to deal with. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of members well, let me not say a lot of members. I think there are quite a few members who do understand that we are a membership-based organization, right? And that we rely on members paying their endowment and their assessments and fees, no more than any other organization structured like we are that relies on it. But when we have some of the critics who come on and say, what are you doing? For the members, the question is, how do we do it if the members are not doing what is at the foundation or the bedrock of the organization, and that's paying whatever assessments or whatever fees that we're responsible for paying. When I hear that, and I've heard, of course, on some of the broadcasts that I did, is because I said, what would be your question to the Supreme President? Yeah, when I say that, I am not interjecting. I'm not trying to respond on his behalf, because that's their question. But I just wonder how some members, not all, how some members miss that membership base means membership fees like the NAACP, right? Like if you don't join and pay your annual dues or fees or whatever like that, like how do you expect the NAACP to be able to operate without income coming in? Yeah.
Let's pause on this. The NAACP does not totally exist off of membership fee.
Okay.
Major corporations provide annual grants to the NAACP.
Okay.
And that's a sizable point of the revenue that they receive. And they support their major fundraisers and things of that nature. With International Mason, and I was talking to the Supreme President today about the souvenir book for Supreme Convention. A little known thing is that, you know, commercial ads in the souvenir book, if every member who came to the Supreme Convention sold one ad to a business, it would drastically increase the amount of revenue that could be raised for the organization. And the organization pays the member a commission to do it. But I don't think enough of the members realize that they can receive a commission for selling Supreme souvenir book ads to businesses. That would help. But as long as the organization has to,
I don't think that the members knew that in the way that you just said it. I don't think that the members knew that.
I don't either. And I was discussing that with him and suggested that he might want to get that information out to the membership because it would help.
Okay. Sister Edie, you want to chime in?
I stand on what I said earlier. I think not so much boycott, because we also have to remember when we boycott businesses that employ a lot of the people who look like us, then we put our people back on life support. So I stand on buying Black, spending Black, and do it a week at a time. The point that we even got to have a conversation to spend Black, you know, after the 400 and now 1 year that we're saying we've been oppressed, is a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. So I think we start small, work our way up to where we want to be with each other.
You know, this came up in a similar way last night with the panel that I was on, because young people were like, well, why can't all the Black leaders just come together? And the analogy that I gave them was, the reason why Africa is not united as a continent is because there are European countries and the United States invested in keeping Africa separated, because you can conquer countries when they're not connected. I think the same is true for the Black communities. The reason why we're having this conversation 401 years later is because there's an investment for us to believe that, as my grandmother used to say, God, and my grandmother's been deceased since 87. She said, don't always think that white folks' ice water is colder than our ice water. And of course, there's different versions of that. But I think some of us have been made to believe within the organization and without, of course, that non-Black ice water is somewhat a little bit colder than Black ice water. And I think that's why we're there, as far as, because we have to look at systematic, right, institutionalized racism that has gotten us here as Black people to even not even be able to naturally and normally talk about supporting Black institutions. Is that I wouldn't put the blame on us as African Americans largely for that. I think that people who have other products and services want us to believe that theirs are better than ours. And so there's a intentional tear down of our institutions, our schools. You know, now there's an attack on HBCUs to say, why do you need a HBCU? Why can't a predominantly white institution serve the same needs, right? Why do you need to shop at this store versus this store? Because our products are quality, made in America. Why do you need to buy this car versus this car? You know, there's some, I just want us to acknowledge that there's an investment in us not supporting Black businesses.
Let me give you another perspective. In 1979, we formed the Michigan Association of Masonic Grand Lodges.
Mm-hmm.
There are a group of Grand Lodges, and I happen to be Grand Master of Michigan at the time. We came together and formed this association. It's a voluntary association. We were able to form that association because one of the principles that we came together on was that mutual aid, mutual recognition and support, not consolidating, not merging or anything of that nature. And one of the Grand Masters, who was one of the, I considered him an elder statesman, he was one of the older of the Grand Masters, said we would never be able to bring all of the grand lodges, most of those with state Grand Lodges, they don't have the structure that international has. In fact, no other Masonic body has the structure that international has. That we would never be able to bring all of the Black Masonic organizations together until there were a lot of Masonic funerals.
A lot of Masonic what?
Masonic funerals. Because each of the Black organizations in 1979 was headed by an individual who was a czar.
Who was a what?
A czar.
Okay, czar, okay.
And they were not going to surrender
okay.
their organization to be led by anybody else.
Okay. Okay.
So as long as the persons who were heading the organization were of that mentality, this is mine, and I'm not going to surrender it to anybody else. Okay. There were mergers of Black Masonic bodies wasn't going to happen. Okay. We have had a few, but the few that have happened because the organization failed. And as a way of salvaging it, okay, it went to somebody else to save it. They couldn't afford to maintain their buildings. And that. Okay. But that's another one of the problems that we have. Everybody wants to be in charge.
Yeah, kingdoms are built off individuals who want to be in charge and won't relinquish it, right? And so remember, I think I told you on Tuesday, Reverend Clay Evans, I was going to share with you something that Reverend Clay Evans did. And so in 1997, Reverend Clay Evans came to the pulpit and announced, and I think he was around 60 something at that time. He said, it's time. And nobody knew what that meant, right? Because of course his closed circle knew, but the membership of the church did not know. Sister Edie, I was a part of that church back then, just so you know. And he said, it's time. And so he said, you don't want to leave a position when people are wondering, why did you stay so long? He said, you want to leave a position when people are begging, when you're on top and people are begging you to stay, because you don't want to be there while your usefulness has run out, right? And so, of course, when he left, the current pastor, I think he just gave up his position, and he announced it was a 19-minute YouTube video about how he's a young man, but he turned it over to another young man, and the church has like catapulted, taken off. And I think we see some examples of other institutions who surround themselves with, I think Sister Edie talked about surrounding yourself with young people, right? Because in Ghana, that's the only real country I can talk about, right? Is that in Ghana, you can't even speak to the elders until you're 35. Like they still consider you a youth until you're 35. And the chief who runs it, you can tell from the villages that are successful and which chiefs have surrounded themselves with others who have the best interests of the village in mind, and which chiefs who are just surrounding the chief because they're friends, right? And so what Clay Evans did was phenomenal, as far as how Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church has now grown. But what the new pastor talked about was the challenges of taking over a church that had been run 49 years by the founder. And I think we suffered, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the National Masons, we suffer from founder syndrome. And I used to do a lecture, and you may have heard me say this in one of my lectures. Dr. Banks didn't think he was going to die. And so he didn't set up the organization to what happens to it.
There was no succession plan.
Right. And so I just think that we have to think about that as far as our institutions, and how we move forward as far as the vision. And like when you think about the Lighthouse of Alexandria, right, is that it was the main lighthouse that ships used as a guide to make sure they were in the right place. And so I just want us to be mindful of the Lighthouse of Alexandria and the light that needs to emulate for the members, right, to know this is the way the ships sail. Yeah, that's probably the best way I can say it.
All right.
So we're at 9:17. I want to get you all's closing thoughts. I will champion the Juneteenth week of buying black, and hopefully it captures on, and we'll go from there. And hopefully we can check in as far as highlighting black business. You know how we did Random Acts of Kindness Week, how we used to take pictures and share random acts of kindness. Hopefully we can get members to share pictures of them supporting black businesses. And some of y'all we're gonna have to get some receipts from, but for the most part, I'll trust you on this. Sister Edie, your closing thoughts.
I think we are at a time now where Americans are looking for America to make good on a check that they have bounced to us as African Americans. So I think now is the time that we take up the torch, not reinvent the wheel, but we are intentional on buying black, engaging black, and voting. Okay.
Dr. Halliwell.
And if we're going to do that, what I would suggest that we do between now and Juneteenth.
Okay.
Is if you're driving around the communities, look for black business. And then share that information with the other members so that we'll be able to make that impact. And as you visit a black business, let them know that you're there intentionally as Masons and Eastern Stars to give them support, recognizing that they're there in the community and their ice water is good as somebody else's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think my closing thoughts would be from Malcolm X, that if you have no critics, you'll likely have no success. Is that we should all be doing something regardless of how we're criticized, because if nobody's talking about you, you're probably not doing anything. And so I think that's the great thing about activism, as far as take it upon yourself to what's important for you as an individual to move the needle forward, as far as hopefully making sure that Black people are safe, and that our children, the next generation and the generation after them, are equipped with some information and tools that will keep them alive, and carry on the legacy of us being the dream and the hope of the slave. That would be my final thoughts. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Okay. Since you said amen, you can also your an offering via Cash App. Well, thank you all for another great conversation chat. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope our members and those who watch and will rewatch felt that Sister Valerie Martin said, thanks for another awesome panel discussion. Thank you, Sister Martin, for that. Sister Patricia Burton said, good points to share. Thank you for that. And so I hope that as people come back and watch this or rewatch it, that we provided some valid contribution to the conversations that are happening, because this is just one conversation. There are many conversations that each of us individually are involved in, and then it goes, you know, mushrooms from there. But hopefully we will get to the shore safe and sound with as many Black folks alive as we can keep alive from engagement and supporting and voting. I think, yeah, voting and engaging. I promise I'm going to renew my membership tomorrow with the NAACP. I will also join the Urban League, Brother Halliwell. Thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate that. And so with that being said, may God bless International Free and Accepted Modern Masons Incorporated and the Order of the Eastern Star. May he also bless illustrious James O. Dogan, our Supreme President and CEO, First Lady Sister Minnie Dogan, our Supreme Executive Vice President, illustrious Kenneth Halliwell, our First Vice President, illustrious Bobby J. Meeks, our Second Vice President, illustrious John Dogan, our Supreme Grand Matron, all of the other Supreme leaders, national district leaders, grand leaders and officers, our local leaders, and more especially our members. May he bless each household that is represented here today and to come. With that being said, good night, everyone, and God bless.
And if you have anything that you think would be beneficial to the conversation, please forward it to Brother Evans so that he can disseminate it to us.
Thank you.
Good night.